Are you like us? Tired of all the politically correct horseshit on podcasts and in the media? Need a podcast that's funny, smart, and gassy? It's not politically correct. It's just correct. This is the Carolina Underground. Throw that middle finger in the air. Raise them up. Because it's time to get loud, proud, and in your face. Generation X. Generation X. The best generation of all time meets the grit of the South. It's about everything and nothing at all. From current events to woolly boogers to movies to politics. Loud, brash, funny, and never, and I do mean never, predictable. The Carolina Underground with Mark and Mike.
Yo, 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 yo. It's the Carolina Underground, and we're back again on this wonderful evening. It's cold, cold, cold. I haven't found any gold. They still digging on Oak Island. The damn tunnel's flooding, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, didn't they know that was going to happen? I mean,
well, you would have thought.
They started with that flooding tunnel the first time that somebody dug down there and ran into that funky
the flood
tablet
tunnel or whatever it is. Yeah. You would have thought, that would have kind of crossed their minds, but
just a little bit. And hell, they were pumping water out of that dadgum thing.
Well, and the garden shaft, which is the one that is flooded now, which is the one that they think that has the highest probability of helping them get to the treasure if it's still there because of the gold and silver in the water. It stayed dry forever. And then now all of a sudden it had got like 30 foot of water in it. So they thinking they have actually pierced the flood tunnel and they're using some kind, and you probably know more about this than I do because this is science crap. Some kind of foamy stuff they spray in the hole that expands up to like 40 or 50 times bigger than what it is. And it's supposed to make it watertight or something like that.
That's essentially the same. I mean, that's just some kind of expanding foam polymer, like the stuff you can get in great stuff at Home Depot.
I don't go to Home Depot.
Well, Lowe's, you can get it.
I don't go to Lowe's.
Well, wherever you buy your hardware supplies, good sir.
I prefer Menards.
Okay.
I just like the name.
Good on them. Well, there you go.
I got brand new. This is an exciting year.
Oh, right.
The Macintosh computer turns 40 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
On hurts. January the 24th, it'll be 40.
Oh, my goodness. Do not do that to me again without warning.
Hey, well, now listen.
Almighty.
I remember this. I didn't get one. I wanted one for Christmas that following December, but we wasn't rolling in it because in 1984, this computer cost $2,495.
Yeah.
That's like $7,500 today.
Yeah, no, back then, sorry, it'd probably be more than that with Bidenomics. But no, I mean, again, the first Apple computer, the first computer I ever put my fingers on, okay, because my daddy had one. Okay. And I actually still have it up in my attic. It was a PC.
Well, you better hold on to them because those old ones actually, believe it or not, are worth money.
Really?
Yes.
So, but I mean, it is back then the PC Junior cost like $4,000, but of course it was designed to be a business machine. And I remember the darn candies were expensive too. I can't remember what the heck they were, but
I specifically remember this, and that's probably the only reason I brought this up and the reason I remember it was because the Super Bowl that year was January the 22nd.
Okay.
And this was one of the ads in the Super Bowl was for this.
Oh, yeah. The one where they had Big Brother and the track star ran up there and threw a shot put or something into
Right.
the
It
screen.
seemed more like a movie premiere than a computer commercial.
Right. And the big question at the end of it was, what in the blazes were they just advertising? Yeah.
Well, and which, by the way, it probably was not a misnomer that it seemed more like a movie production, because Ridley Scott actually directed the commercial.
Well, which may be why nobody knew what the heck he was actually trying to say.
But
I was saying was, the first time I laid hands on a computer, it was an Apple IIe.
That's the Oregon Trail computer.
And that was Oregon Trail.
You got dysentery.
There was another one where you were a pirate in a twisty turny maze, and I can't remember the name of that one. I don't remember
that one.
And then there was another program, and I can't remember. It was Nightmare Number 6.
Nightmare Number 6.
And my name was on some obscure ledger somewhere as the 11th person to solve Nightmare Number 6.
Wow.
In the state of Florida.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah. But at any rate, I'm sorry. You were talking about Macintosh, but that, of course, was way pre-Macintosh.
Yeah, that was before the Mac. That was way before 84. 84 was when the Mac came out.
Yeah, but way before anybody took a bite out of the apple.
Yeah, but 84 is 40 years ago. God, we're old.
Stop it. I don't want to hear this anymore.
Well,
you are ruining our friendship right now.
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
Well, see, I mean, again, that's the thing. Whenever I hear anybody say 25,
you off, let me play the world's smallest violin as I rub my two fingers together for you.
Every time I hear somebody say 25 years ago, I'm thinking that they're talking about Jaws or Star Wars. And it ain't.
It's more than 40 years now. Yeah.
Yep, I know it.
All right. Let's change gears a little bit. You know, this is the 4th episode of season 2. We've trying new things and all this, and we've got another topic we're going to talk about tonight. And I just want to set it up. All right.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
All right. We're sitting comfortably on the sofa. The lights are dim except for a light illuminating the pages of the book we're reading, sitting by the fire. And all of a sudden we catch movement out of our eyes from across the room. And we look. And it seems dark and shadowy, but there's nothing there. And we go back to our reading, and then a moment later, it happens again. And we look up quickly, and this time it's fleeting, but we distinctly see a human shape of a shadow passing quickly over the far wall. Is that spooky enough for you?
Well, we needed some mood music and
and some popcorn.
And some popcorn and an appearance by Elvira wouldn't have hurt my feelings.
Hey,
but
back in the day, Elvira, what was the thing we were typing on the calculator? Boobies.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. Absolutely.
There ain't nothing wrong with Elvira. So if you hadn't figured it out, we're gonna address the topic of, not address it. We're just going to discuss it. The topic of shadow people a little bit this week.
We're going to discuss it or cuss it.
Probably a little bit of both, because I have a little bit of different perspective on it than probably a lot of people. And I understand that you actually have some interesting first-person experience with this. So why don't you share your experience first, and then we'll kind of unpack and see if we can make any headway and come together and see if we agree on what it could be or what it is and all that good stuff.
Well, I'm happy to, but I mean, so I was visiting my significant other, whom I refer to as mi bella tica.
That don't sound like English.
It's not. But she might listen to this, and so she might hear this one. So, but anyway, she it was.
Wait a minute before you start. She might hear this one, so she don't listen.
She might hear this. She's listened to a couple of them.
God help her.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of amazed that she's still with me after that.
Well, I
But
mean, evidently it wasn't one of the ones where we just stacked 20 soapboxes and went off on cussing tirades.
oh no, I was in her bedroom when I stacked 20 some odd soapboxes up. So she kind of did hear that one. But
Uh-oh.
anyway, be that as it may, um, we were, just sleep as we could be,
Mm-hmm.
and she jumped and hollered
Okay.
and woke me up. And now I'm going to tell you what the response or the interaction was um, before I tell you what I experienced from that.
Okay.
Okay. So she jumped and hollered, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "I thought that was you standing over us." Well, at that
Hmm.
point, I decided I best open my eyes because I happen to know that, well, at any rate, frequently people forget to lock the door. She's got a house full of people.
Oh, Lord.
And as I was trying to, sometimes when you in a good hard sleep, it takes a minute or two to get your eyes open.
Right.
And I happened to notice as I was trying to open my eyes, I became aware of the fact that the headboard felt like it was exerting heat like
Hmm.
a heater.
That's
And
interesting.
that I sensed, I couldn't see light, but I sensed light in the room, sort of like almost like it was coming through almost like it was coming through, my eyelids.
Right.
It wasn't really
Well,
there
like
because it
kind of
was
like
pitch
when your
black.
eyes are closed, where it's like you can see it, but you can't see it.
Yeah, exactly. But by the time I got my eyes open, it was pitch black
Hmm.
and the heat was gone. Now, again, could be that we were just both asleep and she was dreaming.
Okay.
She doesn't have any memory of it. I asked her about it after that, a couple of days later, and she doesn't have any memory of it whatsoever. But the thing about it, and this is one of those, I frequently watch Ancient Aliens, not because I believe Ancient Aliens. I mean, they may have been here, they may not have been here, but it's
Uh-huh.
one of those things
Right.
where it's like when they built the pyramids and how they got the Easter Island statues. There's no photographic evidence
Right.
that I'm aware of, or no video footage. So, anybody's guess is as good as mine as to how
Right.
all this
Right.
happened. So, and
Or
and
like
and
the
again,
pyramids and those obelisk,
ob, right,
whatever it is, for pounding.
obelisks,
Yeah, them
yeah,
things. You know, them
them
big rock
things,
things.
them big pointy rock things
Yeah,
that look like a pencil after you
that's
sharpen the
right.
end.
Used for electricity.
Yeah, no, and that's a possibility too. All of that stuff scientifically makes reasonable sense to me because most of them are made out of granite, and
Right.
granite has mica in it and also has iron in it generally. And so
Mm-hmm.
the mica acts as the mica can act as an insulator, and the iron can make it does make it, you know, um, electrically active, I guess is a good way
Okay.
to say
Okay.
it. But anyway, be that as it may. So they had an episode where they talked about shadow people, and I mean I
I
frequently
haven't seen that one. I'll
enjoy
have to
it.
look because I've got it on. I think I watch it on Philo or something where it's all on like
Right.
DVR. So I'll have to look for that one.
Yeah. And so, but again, that I happened to they talk about it, and of course shadow people are just almost like just they're like a shadow, so they're basically negative space. There's no light emanating from them. You just kind of see the shadow.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Frequently
and it's
they
interesting to too note that while you're talking about that being a
Mhm.
shadow, you know, it's the complete opposite of a ghost because these tend not to have any
Right, no
distinguishing
features.
features. Like with a
Right.
ghost, you think of
hmm
period clothing or
Oh
some
yeah, absolutely.
facial details or something like that, and this is just emptiness.
Right. Well, and again, my son has a photo of my son is on the ghost tour that runs our locally, and he's the one that narrates it, and
Oh, okay.
has for several years. And on the very last one that they did this last year, they several folks saw an apparition in one of the haunted places and took pictures, and you can make out the clothes she's wearing. And
Oh,
I've
wow.
actually seen
Wow.
that building at that hour of the evening,
Uh-huh.
and it ain't there normally. Now, I mean,
Hmm.
again, why it's there, what it was, couldn't tell you. But anyway, because I wasn't there. But the thing that they talked about was the ones that they see are the ones that are just completely formless, no nothing. The
Mm-hmm.
ones that they see that they can see eyes in it.
And are they usually red?
I don't recall that, but that would make sense to me. Red, probably red or yellow, because
Right.
a lot of the woolly boogers you hear about either have red eyes or yellow
Yellow
eyes.
eyes, like Sith.
Right. And then you got the one that is kind of unusual is the Hat Man. And
It's interesting you say that because
Mhm.
when you had mentioned this to me before, that
Uh-huh.
actually is one of the most prevalent stories about a shadow figure that you like. If you Google it, that's one of the main ones that it returns hits on is the Hat
Right. And the Hat Man is always singular. There's always only one. So
Man.
he's
Hmm.
like, it's like he's the one that's in charge. But at any rate, of the rest of them. But the thing that struck me as I was watching another episode, and it was about, and I cannot remember the name of them to save my soul, but they
Hmm.
were a primitive group of people, and they dress up in costumes and talk about aliens and all of this stuff coming down and
Hmm.
in their folklore, which a lot of them do. But the thing about it is they paint themselves kind of red and white and wear these headdresses that are kind of pointy and stuff, and they have the eyes are just stark white. But one of them had stuff sticking out of the side of his head,
Hmm.
and that made me think of the Hat Man.
Okay.
But and the point, I guess again, part of the point is of it is, um, as human beings, we only perceive about, and I think it is about 7% of the electromagnetic spectrum
Hmm.
around us.
Okay.
Just a tiny, tiny sliver of what is bouncing around all over the place around us. And again, we're um, we're essentially in four dimensions. So you've got length, width, height for the three dimensions, and
Hmm.
time.
Right.
And that's really all that we directly and knowingly experience and our brains decipher into what we call reality.
Okay.
Okay. Now, another one of the interesting things about that is that everything that you perceive is actually in the past, because it takes a minute for your brain to figure out what it's making. And from what I understand, about 10% of what we perceive as reality is actually input from our five senses, and the rest
Okay.
of it our brain just makes up. So that's why in my opinion, why you get these arguments over what color is the dress. Is it
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
blue and
Yeah. Because
gold, or
yeah, blue. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, be that as it may. So I mean, again, when I say the color yellow, and you say the color yellow, we're looking at the same thing, but there's no possible way that I can determine that what you perceive as the color yellow is anything close to what I perceive as the
Right.
color yellow.
Most definitely. We just
But I'm
assume that when we see something and we know it to be yellow, red, or orange, that somebody else knows it and perceives the color as the same way. And it's
right.
kind of like, and I hate to beat a dead horse like Star Wars and
Hmm.
Disney's version of Star Wars, but it's
Hmm.
like the new show Ahsoka. There was a big
Hmm.
to do about them having orange lightsabers. Well, I
Uh-huh.
don't think they were orange because if you look at some of the last movies they made, that's just the way they're doing red. It's just you're perceiving it to look like orange, and it's really just red.
See, it didn't look orange to me. I've never heard that there was any controversy about it because they didn't look
Well, I
orange to
don't
me.
think it was controversy. I think one of the stills and some of the still shots they released of Balin, whatever his name is, the old guy, and of course
Yeah.
he died, so he's not going to be able to play in any more of them. but
Right.
they were all up to do because there's finally orange lightsabers in Star Wars, and it's like, well, I hate to tell you guys, but they look like they're just redoing the red ones.
Well, and I mean, again, you never know what kind of filters they put on the
Right.
photos and stuff like that. So to make them, yeah. So anyway, but the point I was kind of trying to drive to before I went down that particular rabbit hole is they talked about the shadow people possibly being from a dimension that we normally can't perceive for
Right.
whatever reason,
Okay. I can,
or
I could see that.
interacting with some sort of a machine that
Mm-hmm.
maybe allows people to see from the future into the past or whatever. And I mean, that all makes as much sense as
Well, and I
anything
mean, the
else.
interdimensional beings, you always hear that what is it? We all vibrate at different frequencies.
Exactly. Yep. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so that could make sense.
Hmm.
The way I look at this, and when you talk about shadow people, you're going to get one of several responses, and it's either one of them. Somebody's going to say it's a figment of your imagination,
Hmm.
that you just, or it's a thing of sleep paralysis or something like
Entire,
that.
all of which are valid arguments.
Right.
Okay.
Or it's a
Because
ghost.
exactly. But I mean, again, it's one of those things where, there's definitely a commonality in the human
Right.
condition that we share that causes these things to be become, be visualized for
Right.
whatever reason.
And then I think you
So,
would have the other camp that would say it's either a demon or a negative spirit.
well, and that's equally possible,
Mm-hmm.
because again, that's one of the things I can't remember when it was, but if you are religious at all, and I mean, again, a lot of times you run into, especially Christians, in my experience,
Mm-hmm.
that don't want to talk about demons and demonic possession. And you know what? If you don't want to admit that there were demons and demonic possession in the Bible, you're going to have a heck of a hard time with the New Testament,
Well,
because Jesus went around casting them puppies out
casting
right
them
and
into the
left.
pigs and sending them off
Yep,
the edge. Well, and
that's it.
I read another theory that they said kind of along the same lines of what you're talking about here,
Uh-huh.
that they have theorized that it's people from the future that have figured out how to time travel, and that
Right,
the way they're interacting with us, and we see the shadows, but that's all of them that we can see or perceive, because
right.
we're not vibrating at the
At the
same
correct
thing. And
frequency.
it's
Yeah.
interesting. Initially, I would have thought it was all demons and stuff like that. That's what I thought.
Uh-huh.
That's my take on it. But I got to thinking about this, and you and I have talked about this offline. I was a big fan of the Fringe TV show,
Oh, I loved Fringe. Yep,
and
great show.
toward the end, that was
Hmm.
a lot of what the vibration of the different dimensions and stuff like that. How the stuff was kind of, the two dimension worlds were
Yeah,
colliding together, and
right.
it makes a lot of sense.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
then after though we do that, and I look at some other things, because my original area of study when I was
Mhm.
at I'm not going to say the school because it's, I don't want to bring their reputation down for having me there.
And I went to the same school, so
So,
we
but
won't bring
my
that up.
area of study was started out being psychology and stuff like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And, there was a study not too long ago by a neurologist named Olaf Blank.
Hmm.
And he found that if a certain part of the brain called the temporal junction is
Hmm.
stimulated, it creates the illusion of the shadow people, and you see it a lot in schizophrenics and
Uh-huh.
paranoid people, and they
Hmm.
believe, or the people that have believed they've been abducted by aliens, which
Hmm.
also in turn coincides and goes hand in hand with the people that, because traditionally the shadow people, and I'm not talking like I think the experience like you had, but a lot of times you see meth addicts who are seeing shadow people wherever. They're being followed.
Right.
They're on the street and stuff like that. And I think while that is a possibility, and while it's obviously about a psychological proven thing, I don't discount that the other experiences are valid as well. And it's explaining that because I'm not on meth, and I have had instances, not to the extent that you have, but where I'm sitting there doing something and you catch something out of the corner of your eye or something like that. And then you see all these paranormal shows, not necessarily ancient aliens, to where these are actually malevolent creatures or demons or something like that, and they actually either stalk or try to come after people.
Well, but there are things that do that as well. Now, one of the things now I can tell you for an absolute fact that I know my son is not on any sort of stimulant whatsoever, and he sees them frequently. He sees them in the house. I don't. But he does. But now again, here's the thing. So again, it's like, have you heard of the God Center in your brain?
I don't believe I have, but go ahead.
Okay.
I may know it as something else.
There's you probably do, because that's definitely a layman's term, but there is a place in your brain, and you can build a helmet. I forget what they call the helmet, but you can find the plans on the internet. I highly recommend you do not do this, because I don't trust any electronic device you find on the internet with plans to do it, but I won't go into why. Now, but the thing is, if you stimulate this center in your brain, it will give you an emotional experience as if you were being blessed, is about the best way I can describe it, but it will be an uplifting sort of a heavenly experience.
I have found a safer way to do that instead of trusting the spaghetti strainer on top of your head. It's called LSD.
Well, now I don't recommend that either. Just saying. But the thing of the matter is, I being that you and I both work in information technology.
Where's Walter Bishop when you need him? He can
absolutely.
Up a match.
Exactly. Now, but the thing is, okay, so, being that we're both in IT and we both are involved with software and things like that, I look at things like this, these two portions of the brain that essentially, if you stimulate them, they cause that situation. Well, they're obviously there in your brain for a reason. Now, what is that reason? Why would you have these? What is their function and their purpose if they're there? Because, you don't put parts, there's not extra parts in the body that don't have a purpose. Even when they used to think that the appendix was just a vestigial part of your intestine, they've since found out that that's what stores the bacteria in the event that you have dysentery, to the point where all of the flora and fauna go out of your intestines. That's where you hold the rest of it so that it can repopulate. Okay, so there's not parts in the body that you don't use.
Well, right. I mean, the way I believe it didn't happen by
it didn't happen by accident.
God had a design and had a reason for everything He put in it.
Absolutely.
And so there is a reason for everything. We just may not comprehend it.
Well, and again, our Bible talks to us about angels, and it talks to us about demons and all that sort of stuff.
Well, it does. And, the Bible actually, going back to the drug addicts, and I don't want to beat that a lot, but
I got you.
The meth addicts, it's really surprisingly, I didn't really realize this, but the instances of people that are addicted to meth and on meth seeing shadow people is like astronomical. That's all they talk about. And it's like, evidently it's something that, it does to the brain, or that maybe it's that TPJ center that it's affecting, or something like that. And, it kind of reminds me, and, I don't want to get biblical and stuff like that. But it reminds me actually
Dadgum, I already had my hands in the hair and was ready to say hallelujah. But go ahead.
well, hold on. It reminds me
Preach, brother, preach. Go ahead.
It reminds me of Galatians 5 verses 19 through 21.
Okay.
And it says, now the works of the flesh are evident, which are adultery, fornication, uncleanliness, lewdness, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, dissensions, heresies, envy, murders, drunkenness, revelries, and the like of which I tell you beforehand, just as I also told you in time past, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God.
So basically everything we podcast about.
Well, pretty much. The key word in there, though, I want to talk about, though, is the word sorcery. Okay?
Yeah.
Because in Greek, the word that they are translating as sorcery is pharmakeia. I can't say it. I'm not Greek. I did take New Testament Greek. I can't pronounce it. But
that's the same root as pharmacy, but go ahead.
Right, but it means the use of administering of drugs, poisoning, sorcery, and magical arts. And it's also often associated with idol worship. So it's interesting to know, crystal meth is a concoction of all these poisonous chemicals. Yeah. And so the Bible really is in this instance of this passage is really giving us the connection between drug use and a spirit world.
Well, that's an excellent point. I am gonna take a left turn off of that for a minute, and now
put it in 4-wheel drive, Big Daddy. Put it in 4-wheel drive.
Yep. But I don't remember if I shared this with you or not, but I saw it was a very short video clip that there are 40,000 scheduled drugs that are pharmaceuticals that are on the list of whatever the list is that the medical people are allowed to work from. Mm-hmm. About 500 of those are antibiotics, essentially, some form of an antibiotic.
So most I got it. Yeah.
Yep, but the other 39,500 drugs are not designed to actually cure anything, because we don't require pharmaceutical companies to actually make anything that cures anything. And I don't think most people are aware of that. I certainly
they're more worried about getting high.
Clip. Well, but again, that's kind of one of those things, that's, the whole medical establishment, of course, having become a point of a patient cured is a customer lost. And, but again, our tax dollars pay for the research money for any research that they do in form of grants. And big pharma officials reap unbelievable profits by, using our tax dollars. Right. And this is just something that, but at any rate, I'm sorry, I don't want to go on that. I did have to, I can't get through an episode without putting down at least one soapbox. And I'm going to retract from that, and we'll go back to woolly boogers and shadow people and meth heads.
It's interesting, when we looked this up, there were two, I was looking for, particularly when I was reading about the correlation between drug use and the shadow people. I don't think I have seen a shadow person, but we shared on one of the other episodes about a friend of mine who got a knock at the door that had those kids with the black eyes. And I think that's kind of hand in hand. But, I read a drug addict's testimony, and what he said was, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have it in front of me and I'm not going to read it word for word, but he would see like patches of smoke or mist. And it seemed there was a person lurking in every shadow. And I guess that's why shadow people, not necessarily it is a shadow on the wall.
Right.
And he said they would hear voices and he would see things that weren't there. And the voices were like faint whispers and like they were plotting against me. And, I saw this and I read this, and the first thing that came to my mind was a movie you and I discussed not too long ago
Mhm.
about the nefarious plot.
Yes.
And it kind of seems like, there may be something to this that goes hand in hand. Maybe there is more to this than what we think. Because I firmly believe there is a spirit world. There has to be a spirit world.
Oh, no, there absolutely is. I firmly believe that. Now, there's another couple of movies from the same folks that did that. One of them is called The Shift, and it
And that
is
one is by Angel Studios.
correct.
Great
And it
studio,
is
wonderful place. They're also making that movie, David, the cartoon that I'm so infatuated with right now.
right. Well, I highly recommend watching The Shift. It is based on the story of the book of on the story of Job.
Okay.
Okay. And it's a very entertaining movie, and I think it has a good message to it. Now, the other one, I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head. It might be Life After Death,
Okay.
but it has to do with the people that have died, but were resuscitated from after they had died, and
Mm-hmm.
their experiences,
Well,
both good
that's
and bad.
interesting too. Talking about
Yeah,
near-death experiences, that's an interesting thing too, because
right.
I can't remember who wrote it, but several years ago, I had a book that was detailing people's near-death experiences.
Right, and I think that might, but it's possible. It's entirely possible that that's the book that was the basis for this. But go ahead.
Well, what I found, really interesting about the near-death experience phenomenon
Uh-huh.
was these people were able to give details that there was no possible way that they would know.
Right, absolutely,
And
and many
it
of them
just,
are. Yeah.
right. And it's like the one of them that stuck out really that I remember, because I read this book like years ago. I mean, this was like back in college days or right
Uh-huh.
after college days.
Right.
So that was a little hazy too, LSD. But but anyway,
Yeah.
there's
Have you ever heard of the concept of oversharing, Mike?
yeah, it's kind of like that guy when he stood up in church to confess his sins, and then he's doing this litany of everything he does, and then he talks about how he got messed up drunk one night, and he decided that his wife wouldn't give him none, so he went out in the barn and had with a goat, and the preacher looked at him and said, "Damn, brother, I don't think I'd have told that." It's along them lines.
I was wondering if it was going to be the story about the squirrel running across that
Ooh,
woman's garters, but go
you gotta
ahead.
be careful with that too.
You know the song I'm referring to,
I know
don't
exactly what you're
you? The
referring
day
to.
the squirrel went to church.
Went
Go ahead.
berserk in a church in Mississippi. But anyway, this was talking about, it was an older person who had died and come back, and
Uh-huh.
uh, there was a family member in the room with them,
Uh-huh.
and the hospital they were in, the way the rooms were situated is it was the kind of doors, kind of like a traditional screen door in the South, to where the bottom is metal and the top is either glass or screen, right? Except in
Uh-huh.
this case, the door's wood with glass, a big glass square at the top that's got look like chicken wire in it, like they're
Uh-huh.
going to lock you in there so you can't get out or something. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But
Mhm.
anyway, this older person was laying there, and they were old, and they had come back, and this guy looked, and he said, look, look coming down the steps," because you could see the steps from at an angle, the way the guy was sitting and the way the person was sitting beside him at the bedside. You could see the stairs, and there were some, like, something on the steps that the nurses had left while they were cleaning something up, because it's like the kitchen crew was there and all that stuff, and it had like it described it as one of those like New Year's Eve plastic champagne glasses,
Okay.
or a set of or three or four of those, and they were sitting firmly upright on the stairs
All
and
right.
not near the edge. They were on the stairs because
Mhm.
and of course, obviously, what is going to happen, you wouldn't have got, because they didn't fall off the steps. They didn't fly off the steps. The old man looked, and he said, "Look, coming down the steps." He said, "There's an angel coming down the steps." And
Uh-huh.
about the time his caregiver or family member looked up, those plastic champagne glasses shattered and flattened like somebody stepped on them.
Intriguing. Well, I mean, again, it goes back. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is from Shakespeare that there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern,
Right.
no less. So, and I
Oh,
don't recall, now that I've said that, I may have made myself sound foolish because I don't recall if that actually was within Hamlet or if it was in the adaptation of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. But I think it
hmm.
was actually in Hamlet. I'll have to look that up now. Doggone it.
I
Sorry.
wouldn't mind having an omelet.
Okay.
I've
But
never been
now if you
big on
get it
cooking.
scattered, covered, smothered, and chunked, then it becomes a Hamlet, right?
That's right, exactly right. Exactly. See, you know these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have been to the Waffle House. Rather
The
enjoy it.
awful waffle.
The awful waffle. Now I do love, they make a great cheeseburger. And you put
Actually,
some
their
chili on
breakfast
that thing.
bowls are really good too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, but it's not what you call healthy, low carb
Oh no! Well, when have I
diet.
ever
So,
worried about low carb?
well, I know, but I'm just saying.
Dude, I bought a
So,
loaf of bread, sourdough bread at the Piggly Wiggly the other day, and got home and toasted the whole loaf and ate it and a pound of butter.
all right, man.
All right, so the shadow. So finishes. I don't even think you finished about the shadow. Your experience.
Well, no, that was really it. But again, the point being, it is, I mean, and I can't tell you if, I mean, I didn't actually see a shadow person myself, but my son has seen them frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was not too terribly long ago. He was sitting on the couch in the living room and hollered that he saw something that looked like a dog
Hmm.
walking through and I guarantee you he is not. I mean, because he has a heart condition,
Okay.
and so he doesn't even drink coffee. He doesn't drink sodas because it causes his arrhythmia to act up. So
Oh, I hate to
he,
hear that.
yeah, yeah, no, but he's fine. He does
Well, yeah,
well.
but a life
But
without soda and coffee.
yeah, I know
That's like
well,
that's like having to give up those three letters that shall not be named anymore.
that's what my girlfriend drinks decaf coffee with soy milk and like
Oh God,
Splenda or
is
something
she a
in it.
vegan?
No, she's not. But
Thank
I
God.
asked, I told her, I told her that was not a cup of coffee. Why bother?
Right.
There's nothing. There's no reason to have that. But anyway,
There's no point for that to exist.
exactly not. So, but
So out of the theories, okay, so we've theorized that it could be one of several things, right?
uh-huh,
It's either a figment of your imagination, sleep paralysis and stuff like that. It's either a ghost, a
uh-huh,
demon, an astral body,
uh-huh.
a time traveler, or interdimensional beings, which I can consider time travelers and interdimensional beings kind of the same ilk and the same thing.
Well, time is a dimension.
Right.
So by definition, but go ahead. I'm
And
sorry. I
there's
didn't mean to
also,
disrupt
and
you.
then the last theory that I was able to find that people had associated with this is they actually believe that it could be an actual part of the alien and part of the alien abduction thing.
Well, that's yeah. The shadow people sightings usually do accompany alien abductions. I don't personally believe I have ever been abducted, and if I was ever abducted, they for sure brought me back in a hurry.
That's why I
So
never have to worry about being kidnapped.
this is true. But again, and I mean any of these. As it's like I always say, I mean, when I talk to people that have a differing opinion, you know what? You may be right. I
What's wrong with
don't
that?
know.
And that's fact. I mean, this is
Yeah,
something that, we're not going to be able, nobody's going to be able to tell you definitively
right. Well,
until,
until somebody drops a net on, sort of like Bigfoot. Nobody's going to be able to tell you definitively that Bigfoot does or does not exist until they capture one of them sapsuckers.
well, them boys from West Virginia, they're close. Them monster hunters,
Yep, I hear
they're
you, man.
close. Trapper, he died.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
But
I
again,
think he had
also,
some health problems, but I think he did pass away a couple years ago.
yep. And you remember we were talking about the Brown Mountain Lights,
We were.
and we talked about it, and we researched it, and we were going to go out there and see them,
Well, it
and
got
then we
colder.
found out. Well, wait a minute, but we found out that they had put up cameras for about, what was it, 3 years,
Oh, I
and had
forgot all
not
about
seen
that.
any of them, and they
Oh,
had
I
not
remember.
seen any
Yeah,
of
but
them,
I thought they had like that one day it popped up that something
and they
showed
were
up.
they were getting, and we talked about that, and they were getting ready to take them down.
Mm-hmm.
And as they were getting ready to take them down, you can hear on the video the guy go, "What in the bleep is that?" And they popped up, and there they were.
It's
So
interesting how
again,
that, because I watched that, and it's weird
mhm,
because the phenomenon of that we've been talking about, the shadow people here. That's not necessarily a new thing,
no, not at all.
because it kind of got. I think it was a radio show that kind of brought it to the forefront back in the early 2000s. But there was a Native American elder who was Harley Swift-Deer Reagan, who
Hmm.
actually was telling about. So this is actually an older phenomenon, and I don't know, the shadow people could be in the same instances of the skinwalker or something of that effect as
Well,
well.
and as you bring that up, that was one of the things that amazed me in Costa Rica as I was going through one of their that actually is kind of it's almost like a coffee-based Disneyland, but they
Now I might have to
I tell
make
you, it is well worth it.
I
But
might have to make a dream come true
you will
and wish
absolutely
upon a coffee cup.
you will definitely be caffeinated when you walk out of there. But at any rate, they had
I'm
multiple
caffeinated now.
statues
Can't tell.
of there were multiple statues of the fairy tales that they used to tell their children,
Okay.
and the similarities between the Grimm's fairy tales and stuff like that. For example, they had a fellow that turned into a wolf, for example, much
Okay.
like a werewolf. And they had, now the one that caught my attention the most. Now, of course, they had a woman that mourned for her child as she walked up and down the riverbank. Now, I mean, these stories, just like the Grimm's fairy tales, were absolutely horrific.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Which
so like
when people tell me that they really like fairy tale stories, I'm like, have you
you hadn't
read
heard
them
them,
like they really
yeah.
were meant to be?
Right, not the Disney-fied versions,
Right.
the actual version. But the other thing is just about every single culture that I can think of has some form of elf or little people. And
Hmm.
they had one and they call them elves. Now, again, I don't know how much
I
of
don't
that
call mine elves. I call them hobbits.
hobbits. Well, and they found bones in an archaeological dig
Well,
of a
the way
hominid.
Tolkien, but the way Tolkien wrote the story was, according to him, he found some kind of lost history and was just reporting or reading it or
Right,
translating it.
right. That's what he said. But again, they found a hominid, and again, you have the pygmies, and I think they're in South Africa or in the Middle Africa.
They're
But
in
anyway,
it's New
not
Guinea,
Papua
called
New Guinea,
bless
Papua
the
New Guinea.
pennies,
Yep.
the pygmies in New Guinea.
Right, right, right. My apologies. I get crossed up, and I'm a Merkin, so I ain't real good at geography. But at any rate, so the point being that there are there are commonalities in the human experience that cross cultural barriers, that cross everything. So, it is it is equally possible in my mind that these are real perceived events as it is that they are simply perceived because of the chemical makeup of someone's brain. And of course, those chemical makeups would be altered if you were ingesting homemade pharmaceuticals or pharmaceuticals that are sold by Big Pharma.
That is true.
So
And
there you have it.
that brings us to the end of our time today. And I know some of this stuff is scary, but don't be afraid, because I'm going to tell you, do not be afeared. There's a reason why fear not appears 365 times in the Bible because it's fear not for one time each day of the year.
Oh, that's intriguing. I've
It
never
is.
heard that before.
Yeah,
I
the
like
fear
that.
not is in the Bible 365 times. And so, no matter what you believe, if you believe they're evil spirits or not, aliens or not, fear not.
Well, there you have it.
And that is the snout to the curly tail and everything in between. Reach out to us by email if you have any stories to share about or any experiences with shadow people or any other woolly boogers. And
Or anything you'd like for us to look into, because we
Right.
love to learn.
we love to learn. And, our new take on our entire thing with like the redneck agenda and all this is we're not politically correct, but we're just correct. And with that, we gone.
All right, you crazy bunch of motherfuckers. Wait, can we say mother? Anyway, you've been listening to the Carolina Underground. It isn't politically correct, it's just correct. Our motto is, if you can't go balls deep, don't go at all. Actually, that's not our motto, and I'm sorry, I don't even know what that meant. All right, we gotta go. We hope you enjoyed the show. And if you didn't, we hope it really pissed you off. Follow us on Twitter at Carolina UNDGRND Underground, get it? Or drop us an email at Carolina UNDGRND, get it? At northstate.net. We want to hear from you. Y'all be cool. See you next time on Carolina Underground.